Sandra had grown up with Hendrix, so she was even more familiar with Freeman Manor than Noelle. As soon as she entered the house, she walked over to the elderly lady while exclaiming, "Grandma Ophelia." "Oh, it's Sandy." Hendrix's grandmother, Ophelia Jones, was overjoyed. "Let me take a look at you. Have you lost weight again?" "Not really. Look. I made some crab cakes for you," Sandra replied. "You sweet girl. How thoughtful of you," Ophelia praised. The two of them chatted affectionately, and Ophelia was all smiles. However, the moment Noelle approached, her smile faded significantly. Noelle acted as if she hadn't noticed anything and respectfully greeted, "Grandma." Ophelia glanced at her and was about to say something, but Noelle shifted her attention to the top of the stairs and called out, "Mom." "Madam Freeman," Sandra greeted, straightening up. She had been leaning on Ophelia's shoulder just a moment ago. She became timid the moment she saw the person at the top of the staircase. "Hello, Sandra." Beatrice Robertson, Hendrix's mother, acknowledged her with a nod. Her attitude was somewhat distant but still polite, making it impossible to fault her. Then she turned to Ophelia and greeted, "Mom." Ophelia merely responded with a slight hum, her expression even icier than Beatrice's. Nevertheless, Beatrice didn't seem to mind. She glanced at the food Sandra had brought and commented, "The doctor said Mom has been having indigestion lately. Crab cakes are too oily. They're not suitable for her consumption." After a slight pause, she instructed their butler, Grant Earl, to take the snacks away. "Take them to the kitchen, Grant." Throughout the entire exchange, Beatrice didn't bother to consult Ophelia or even look at Sandra. Sandra was very good at winning people over. But no matter how hard she tried, Beatrice never seemed to like her. Beatrice had always maintained a cool, distant demeanor. She treated people with grace and elegance, never extending any hospitality deeper than general courtesy. It had been Beatrice who insisted on fulfilling her late husband's wish. She insisted that if Noelle had truly gone missing and could no longer be found, then the prearranged engagement would naturally fall through. But since Noelle had returned to the Swanson family, she was the one who should marry Hendrix. If it weren't for Beatrice's insistence, Noelle wouldn't be Mrs. Freeman now. Of course, Sandra felt resentful toward Beatrice, but then she never dared to show it openly. Beatrice, on the other hand, paid no mind to how Sandra felt. After giving her instructions to Grant, she turned to Noelle and said, "Come upstairs with me." "Sure," Noelle replied, making her way up the stairs. Once they reached the tea room, Beatrice handed Noelle a business card. "I found an old alternative medicine practitioner through some connections. Go see him tomorrow and let him assist you with your health." Noelle pursed her lips, and she didn't reach for the card. Almost as if she could tell what Noelle was thinking, Beatrice continued, "You and Hendrix have been married for 2 years now. It's time to start thinking about having children." Sandra was raised by Ophelia, so she may be a little biased toward her. But once you have a child, she won't trouble you anymore. It was rare for Beatrice to speak so much to Noelle. Noelle kept her head lowered and didn't utter a word. Upon seeing this, Beatrice added, "What happened last time was just an accident. It's been over a year since then. You need to move on." Beatrice's words caused Noelle to shudder, and she clenched her hands tightly by her sides. Her lower abdomen even ached reflexively. Was it an accident? Of course, it wasn't. Despite what everyone said to comfort her, Noelle knew better than anyone that it wasn't an accident at all. Sandra had deliberately caused her to fall down the stairs. Hendrix returned just before dinner. Ophelia was naturally all smiles when she saw her grandson. She held Hendrix's hand and asked him about his day. "Look at you. You've lost weight again," Ophelia said with displeasure. "How is it that you've gotten even thinner after getting married? How has your wife been taking care of you?" Her criticism was directed at Noelle. Before Noelle could respond, Sandra spoke up. "Grandma Ophelia, please don't scold Noelle. She's been very busy lately. I heard she has another comic that is about to be published. Didn't you notice that she's also lost a lot of weight? I felt so bad for her when I saw her yesterday." Sandra's words seemed to be in Noelle's defense, but something about them felt off. Of course, only Noelle could fully grasp the hidden jab in them. After hearing what Sandra said, Ophelia's displeasure deepened. Bah, comics. Those worthless things can't even be called art. You. Ophelia was about to lecture Noelle when Hendrix interrupted her. Can we eat now? Hendrix, you. Ophelia began, but Beatrice stepped in and cut her off. Mom, Hendrix is a grown man. He knows how to take care of himself. Since she put it that way, Ophelia could only swallow her reproaching words. She then turned to Sandra and said, Sandy is always the best, so sensible and caring. If only. Ophelia's voice trailed off because she realized she was about to say something inappropriate again. Beatrice changed the topic swiftly, saying, Noelle, are your parents still abroad? Yes. It's not very convenient for Sandra to stay at your place for such a long time. I think it would be better for her to stay here for a while. After all, didn't you just say you wanted to spend more time with my mom, Sandra? As soon as Beatrice made that suggestion, Sandra's expression faltered. Beatrice didn't give her a chance to object. She went on. Besides, I've found a few promising young men for you. This would be the perfect opportunity for you to get acquainted with them. That's not necessary, Sandra muttered, her eyes beginning to redden. But before she could say more, Ophelia interjected. Sandra is still young. Her parents aren't exactly in a rush to marry her off, either. That's not true. Matilda and I spoke about this before. She asked me to help introduce some good prospects to her. Recently I've come across. I don't want to. Sandra shrieked. Her shrill voice startled everyone in the room. Sandra realized that she had reacted too strongly. She bit her lip and added, I don't want to think about marriage just yet. Beatrice didn't say another word. She merely narrowed her eyes as she studied Sandra. Sandra couldn't bring herself to meet Beatrice's gaze. So she turned to Hendrix instead. Rix, I don't want to consider marriage right now. Help me. Rix, huh? Noelle scoffed inwardly. She felt a sudden urge to laugh upon hearing that nickname. But before the smile could reach her lips, she heard Hendrix's response. He said, If Sandra isn't ready yet, then let's leave it for now. We'll discuss this another time, Mom. Hendrix, thank you for speaking up for me earlier, Sandra said from the back seat on the way home. After that, she continued yammering nonstop. I had no idea Mom would talk to Madame Freeman about this. I was so scared. Luckily you stepped in or I wouldn't have known what to do. I don't want to get married so soon. Hendrix was driving. He merely said a faint hum in response. He seemed to be flippant toward her, but Sandra knew that was just the way he was. So she didn't mind. She turned her attention to Noelle, who was in the passenger seat. By the way, what did Madame Freeman say to you when you both went upstairs? Nothing, Noelle replied dismissively, not even bothering to entertain Sandra at all. Sandra pursed her lips in slight dissatisfaction but quickly changed the subject. Oh right. Did you know that Max is coming back to the country? Noelle's composed expression shifted slightly at those words. At that moment, the traffic light ahead turned red. Hendrix smoothly brought the car to a stop. The braking wasn't abrupt. Noelle was caught off guard by the news for a moment, so her body jerked forward slightly. The seatbelt snapped her back into place. Hendrix glanced at Noelle. Mom said he's doing really well abroad. It's been so many years. Haven't you two kept in touch at all? Sandra asked.
No, no he le responded.
Her voice remained calm, although her hands on her lap were clenched tightly. Such a shame. You two were so close back then, Sandra murmured. She then turned to Hendrix. Do you remember him, Hendrix? Moksvash. I know. He's the illegitimate son of the Quinlan family, Hendrix replied quickly this time. He said the words illegitimate son without any hesitation. Noelle couldn't help but frown at that. Even Sandra seemed momentarily stunned, but she nodded in agreement shortly after Hendrix's blunt words. Yes, that's him. He was classmates with Noelle and we all used to hang out together. It's a shame he went abroad. I always thought he and Noelle would stay in touch, but I guess not. Sandra's voice trailed off, her gaze fixed on Noelle. Noelle thought Sandra was being ridiculous. She couldn't understand why the latter was bringing all this up in front of Hendrix. Was she trying to drive a wedge between them? Or was she hoping to make Hendrix jealous? If that was her plan, she had grossly miscalculated the situation. Hendrix wasn't the type to care about such things. Perhaps realizing this herself, Sandra grew quieter during the rest of the trip. By the time Hendrix stopped the car, Noelle noticed that Sandra had fallen asleep. Even though Noelle didn't particularly like her, she had to admit that Sandra had a beautiful appearance. With her eyes closed, she looked peaceful in sleep. Her petite figure evoked a sense of tenderness and stirred one's instinct to protect her. As Noelle wondered whether she should wake Sandra, Hendrix walked over and opened the back door. Without hesitation, he lifted Sandra into his arms. The movement roused Sandra slightly. She opened her eyes, still half asleep, and murmured, "Rix." Then she instinctively wrapped her arms around his neck. After settling into a comfortable spot in his arms, she fell asleep again. Their actions were so smooth and natural, as if they had done it countless times before. Noelle remained seated in the front passenger seat. She thought she had grown numb enough, but at that moment, she still felt a sharp pain stabbing at her heart. It was as if something was gnawing at her from the inside. She suddenly recalled something from a long time ago. It was shortly after she had returned to the Swanson family. She remembered clearly that it was raining that day. Matilda had personally come to pick her and Sandra up from school, but they got into a car accident on the way home. Though the accident wasn't serious, the driver swerved to avoid another car and crashed into a nearby median. Noelle had hit her head on the window and was knocked unconscious. Before she lost consciousness, she remembered seeing Matilda bypass her and reach out to Sandra. Matilda sobbed gut-wrenchingly as she held Sandra back then. At that moment, Noelle understood. The only reason they had found her again was because she carried their bloodline. But to them, Sandra was the daughter they truly cherished. After realizing this, Noelle forced herself not to dwell on it because every time she thought about it, it only brought more pain. But now, the memory surfaced again. Only this time, the person holding Sandra wasn't her mother, it was her husband. Noelle didn't know how much time had passed. Eventually, she got out of the car. Just then, a low rumble of thunder echoed across the sky, and a heavy downpour followed. Noelle quickened her pace to get inside, but the place where Hendrix had parked was still some distance from the front door. She ended up getting drenched from head to toe. The lights were on upstairs, one in Sandra's room and another in Hendrix's study. Evidently, he hadn't even noticed that she hadn't come inside yet. Noelle stood in place for a while, confirming this. Then, with stiff legs, she slowly made her way upstairs. Her phone screen suddenly lit up. There was an incoming call from an unfamiliar number. As Noelle stared at the number, something clicked in her mind, and she halted her steps. Just as she contemplated whether to answer, the caller hung up. For some reason, the moment the screen went dark again, Noelle felt an inexplicable sense of relief. But just as quickly, a second call came through. Noelle knew who it was. This time, she didn't hesitate and answered the phone. Elle. She had not heard that nickname in a rather long time. Upon hearing it suddenly, it threw her off a little. "It's me," he said. "Maxwell." "Oh," Noelle replied softly. "Are you back in the country?" "No," Maxwell said with a chuckle. "But I'll be back soon. I've booked a flight for the day after tomorrow. Do you have time? Do you think you could pick me up?" Noelle fell silent. "Is it inconvenient for you?" Maxwell quickly picked up on her hesitation. "It's okay. I can get back on my own. It's just, after all this time, I hope the first person I see when I return is you." "I'm married," Noelle blurted. "I know," Maxwell replied, not exactly surprised about it. "To that guy whose last name is Freeman, right? After all, Amity Group is so famous. Even from abroad, I heard about the CEO's wedding." Noelle fell silent again. After a brief pause, Maxwell asked softly, "Oh, are you doing well?